for being here. Apprenticeship is a hot topic these days. There is so much exciting work going on in the field. And so really looking forward to today's presentation and discussion. If you are just joining us, please do feel free to drop an intro in the chat. If there's a question that you really want to make sure we answer, let us know. We will try to get to those as we're able to. Yeah, thanks for being here. So I start off with my obligatory overview of the coalition. So if you haven't joined us before, you're in for a treat. The Ohio Workforce Coalition is 15 years old this year. We are a coalition that works specifically to advance workforce systems and policies that can make work better for individuals and employers in the state of Ohio. So we convene networks of stakeholders from across the state, such as you all, and then we work with you all to identify policy priorities and then advance those policy priorities across the state. We have done a lot of work over the years on sector partnerships, career pathways, financial aid, and how things are funded. We have focused on data and the importance of transparent data, and really encourage you all to stay connected. We just completed a policy priority survey, and really want to be responsive to the individuals who are part of these conversations as we think about what to prioritize for the next General Assembly. So we are in webinar format today. So again, you can use the chat. If you feel more comfortable, you can direct message me, or you should be able to also reach out to Carter to share questions or comments. Do encourage comments back and forth. And, also encourage you to go check out our website, the coalition website. We do these monthly, we record them. There's a YouTube channel. There's lots of great information, and it's always nice to hear from the folks who are presenting it. So you can get to those recorded webinars from our website. We're on Twitter right now. I don't know how I'm feeling about Twitter these days, so check us out on Twitter. But if you don't see us there, please feel free to call, email, otherwise reach out. You can always reach me at info@ohioworkforcecoalition.org. And finally, because it is 15 years today, or not today, but this year that we've been around, we really do appreciate any level of support that you can provide to help us keep the work going. So Carter will usually include a link there as well. So with that, I want to turn over the agenda to my colleague, Lori McKnight. Lori is the Workforce Board Director for Area 14, and Lori is a member of the Ohio Workforce Coalition's Leadership Committee, as well as engaged in the leadership of the Ohio Workforce Association, which are the Ohio workforce boards from across the state. Lori's going to introduce our speaker, and with that, Lori, you're on.
Thank you, everyone. So glad to be here, and was so happy to be able to connect everyone with our speaker. So our speaker today is Holly Endicott. She is the program administrator of ApprenticeOhio, which we call AO, for the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Office of Workforce Development. With over 17 years in employment services for the public sector, Holly's focus has been in program administration, grant oversight, team building, and professional development. Holly has worked her way through the ranks of OWD by providing oversight to multiple programs such as Wagner-Pizer, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which is another great one, migrant and seasonal farm work, which is something that we're just getting into, foreign labor certification, trade and reemployment services, and eligibility assessment. And prior to landing in AO, ApprenticeOhio, which we're so happy to have her, Holly also holds a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism with a concentration in advertising from The Ohio State University. Holly, I will let you go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. So can everybody hear me? Am I echoey?
You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
good. Okay, a little echoey on my end. So I do have to say that Lori owes me lunch and a dinner because she did not tell me that there were going to be so many people on here. So I'm just kidding. So I thought it would be fun if we just got started today and talking about Apprentice Ohio, with what we do, who we are, and how we kind of make all of our world go around. So just starting out with a little bit of a history lesson. Ohio is there is a state apprenticeship agency. So what we refer to ourselves as an SAA state. And what that really means is that the Office of Apprenticeship has given us authority on the behalf of the United States Department of Labor to provide oversight and registration of all registered apprenticeship programs in Ohio. So we were actually awarded this distinction in 1957, and it allows us to be the ones that make decisions on registered apprenticeships within our state. So Department of Labor gives you a couple different options on how you can do this. You can follow Department of Labor standards, or you can have your own kind of guiding principles. So Ohio has extra outlined guidance in our Ohio Revised Code 510111. So a lot of times when we are working with employers, we'll refer back to Ohio Revised Code 510111. But that is just kind of our operating plan on how we do registered apprenticeships throughout the state. Also with our Apprentice Ohio, we have an apprenticeship council. So not only do we do our internal business, but we have a council that helps us to hear the voice of industry, labor, and education. So that's a little bit about who we are. So I'm going to advance on and tell you a little bit more about what a registered apprenticeship program is. So, and so it is a workforce training model that combines training and education. And then so it's the oldest form of workforce development, and it's a training method that dates back all the way to medieval times. So really, basically, what we're doing is we're taking a century-old way of training and bringing it back to kind of what we're doing now. So apprenticeships were predominant until about the 1960s, and then we got away from them. So now we're circling back. You know how what they say, whatever is old is new again. So 60 years later, this is now resurfacing as a proven way to successfully train a workforce. And we are definitely seeing a need for this with the skilled workers. So it's a really very simple formula. It combines on-the-job training and a related instruction or classroom training. And the results of that is a workforce that is competent in the training that has been provided. So who offers registered apprenticeship? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of you. So there's two different types of kind of sponsors or people that administer a registered apprenticeship programs. We have single sponsors, and that can be a private industry. So take, for instance, like a Whirlpool. Whirlpool can say, hey, we would like to have a registered apprenticeship program within our facility. They come to us, we go through the whole process, and then they have the ability to say, hey, internal staff, we're going to put you through a registered apprenticeship program, or they can go to external hires, but it's all with kind of in their pillar. We also have what we call group sponsors, and we're seeing a huge trend in this right now. But this is a group acting on behalf of employers. So this can be like workforce development boards. I know we have a good relationship with Lori right now. We're venturing into different areas with her. We also see group sponsors as in like colleges and universities, business associations. We do see some state and local governments, and probably the most common group sponsor would be our unions. We do have a lot of construction trades offering, apprenticeships through their programs. So what is needed for a registered apprenticeship program? This seems to be what everybody wants to know. So each program includes a minimum of 2,000 hours of on-the-job training. And I say minimum because the length of an apprenticeship program can vary depending on the employer and the complexity of the occupation. A lot of times, the Department of Labor has a group dedicated to occupational standards, and we will work with them to see the amount of time that's required to learn the occupation. But all registered apprenticeship programs have to have at least a minimum of 2,000 on-the-job training hours and 144 hours of classroom instruction. And the only other minimum requirement is the participants must be at least 16 years of age or older. So a little bit more about the on-the-job training. So again, I stress the word registered apprenticeship program. A lot of times you will see, you'll see a local tattoo parlor that may say, apprenticeship here. If it does not go through the office of ApprenticeOhio, it is not a registered apprenticeship program. So for a registered apprenticeship program, we consider on-the-job training as a hands-on training offered by the employer, where the apprentice is learning the knowledge, skills, and competencies for that specific career. So again, I talked about the Department of Labor and the Office of Apprenticeship. So a lot of our OJT hours are determined by that office. And it is based on industry standards and defined by work process schedules. So programs can range from 2,000 to 10,000 hours. And again, that's based on the skill and competencies needed to master that. Just giving an example, a welder may require less skill than an electrician. So it could be the difference between 2,000 and 10,000 hours of on-the-job training. On-the-job training, we do require structured, supervised, and systematic training. So we don't ever expect an apprentice to be out on the job without a mentor guiding them or a journey person. On-the-job training also offers wages and benefits in an incremental status. So one of the requirements to be a registered apprenticeship is that they have progressive wage scale. The wage goes up as they learn the skills. And again, back to that journey person to apprenticeship ratio, for safety purposes and learning experience, we do ensure that there's a journey person to an apprentice ratio for all of the programs. Related instruction. So again, first component is on-the-job training. Second is related instruction. So the related instruction is classroom time. And we do require a minimum of 144 hours of related instruction per 2,000 hours of OJT. So the coursework can be earned college credit and can serve as a pathway to a degree. So not only are they getting an apprenticeship credential, but then that coursework can also go towards a college credit. And again, safety training is required. So all of our programs do have to be compliant with OSHA standards and any industry recognized standards that are out there. So then it takes us into, as we start to get inquiries about a registered apprenticeship program, we do sit down with the employer or the group sponsor or the sponsor to just determine what kind of approach they're going to take to do the registered apprenticeship program. So there are 3 different approaches that we discuss when working with a sponsor. You can do a time-based approach, a competency-based approach, or a hybrid approach. So the time-based, that's kind of the tried and true model. This is what, when I talked about the medieval times and them working to maybe be a blacksmith, you had so many hours, you just kept doing it until you were good at it. So These kind of programs can last 1 to 6 years. The apprentices are required to complete a minimum number of hours of those OJT hours and the related instruction hours based on what the standards say are needed to become competent in that area. And then the progression through the process is measured solely by the number of hours that you do the job. So again, tried and true method is time-based, very systematic, very check mark based. Then we have competency-based. This is a different approach to apprenticeship programs, but you advance as your skill level advances. So apprentices must demonstrate they have achieved the set of competencies the employer has identified necessary to be competent in that field. They progress through the OJT kind of at their own pace, and it's based on how they achieve or attain their competencies. Even though it is skill-based, there are still the requirements of the classroom time, the related instruction. But with this, the employer does not really need to track the hours or monitor the amount of time spent doing it. They are, again, just are going based on achievement of the skill. And then the third type of approach that we do to apprenticeship programs are hybrids. So hybrid is kind of just like it sounds, a combination of both of them. The apprentices are asked to achieve a set amount of competencies within a specific time range. So again, they want them to advance, but there is also hours that must be obtained while they do it. The employer defines the required competencies and the range of hours within which they believe the apprentice should gain those competencies, giving them a kind of a goal to achieve it. And then if they do it sooner, they can advance, but if not, they have that time frame to do it. And then a progression through the OJT portion of the apprenticeship is measured both on the level of skills gained and the number of hours in the OJT to attain those skills. So again, 3 different types of approaches. When we are working with a sponsor, we go through all of these, take a look at it. We even pull up some of other areas in the country that may be doing things and kind of look at different standards of how they're met. So options there. So once we decide what kind of approach that we're going to take, then our team will help the employer or the sponsor develop standards. And a lot of people think that this is lengthy. There's a lot of work to it, but actually it's just compiling a lot of things that most employers have on hand. And if they don't have on hand, they probably should. But here are kind of a list of things that are required when we are completing standards. So again, identification of the sponsor. This is going to be who's responsible for the administration of all aspects of the program. So who's going to help with the selection process? Who is going to ensure the apprentice have written agreements? Who's going to review and recommend activities of the program? Who's going to register and maintain the standards? So when it's a single sponsor, pretty easy. It's going to be the sponsor that it's going to be that sponsor. It's going to be that employer. When it's a group one, those are discussions that we have. Maybe it is the workforce development board that is going to oversee it for an employer. So again, there's some flexibility on identifying the sponsor. We do ensure that it has an equal opportunity pledge. Again, we do not want to discriminate due to race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. So we have to put that EEO pledge in there. We ensure that the employer has an affirmative action plan and selection procedure. Again, one of the cool things about apprenticeship is that we are able to kind of target underutilized populations such as minorities and women in the workplace. So an affirmative action plan is just established to ensure that. There is a section for the qualifications of the apprenticeship. Again, qualifications for this can be test scores. So before you start the program, maybe you have to test a certain level. So we do include in the standards what those qualifications are. We do have an apprenticeship agreement, and this is just something that is given to the apprentice. It gives the terms and conditions of the standards. And then it really allows us to register them with a Department of Labor kind of tracking system, which is called RAPIDS. We do have to identify the ratio of journey person to apprentice. Again, we don't want any apprentice to work without proper supervision. We do go over the terms of the apprenticeship, where this is where we do identify that time-based or competency-based or hybrid approach. We define a probationary period. This is a time where the apprentice or sponsor may terminate the agreement. The hours of work are defined. Usually this is where we talk about the OJT hours. And again, because of that journeyman to apprenticeship ratio, usually those hours are the same as the journey worker. Wage progression, I did talk about one of the key aspects of a on-the-job training registered apprenticeship portion is the apprentice will be paid progressively as their skills increase. There's a portion for credit of previous experience. Again, a sponsor can grant some credit towards any work experience or demonstration of knowledge that an apprentice may have. A related instruction section, that again is where we define the classroom coursework. Safety and health training portion, all apprentices will receive instruction in safety and health. A lot of times this is the OSHA training or the industry standards. Oh, we're not done. There's more. So the last couple of pages of the standards, we do have a section about maintaining records. Again, who's going to be responsible for tracking the apprentice as they go through, keeping track of their hours, their wages, any evaluations and things like that. We do talk about the certificate of completion. Upon completion of the program, a certificate will be rewarded. These are nationwide, and so we do have to make sure that everything has been documented so that they will get that completion certificate. A notice of registration agency, again, anything that is happening with the registered apprenticeship program, if it is being registered, reinstated, extended, modified, if credit is being granted, anybody completes, anything's transferred, any type of transaction has to go through ApprenticeOhio. So there's a whole portion about that. There is a collective bargaining agreement. And then there's even some smaller sections about registration, cancellation, deregistration, amendments, modifications, and transfers. So I say all of that just to know that there is a lot of paperwork, but the paperwork is there to, one, give the parameters, two, meet the guidelines of Department of Labor, and most importantly, keep that apprenticeship safe while they progress. So we do not have expectations that a sponsor or an employer would put those together on their own. So that is where our team comes in. So ApprenticeOhio has 13 what we call ASPs, which are apprenticeship service providers. They are located strategically across the state. So they're in every kind of workforce area, and they are here to help with program development. They also help with program registration, any technical assistance, and they are also out there to help promote the benefits of the program. So again, we have 13 folks that are out to help create these registrations. Also, if there's any technical assistance, they are just a phone call away. So when we have folks that are interested in a registered apprenticeship program, just give our office a call and we will help kind of walk through the process. So apprenticeship is a win-win. And I just basically want to tell you some of the benefits for the employer. So ApprenticeOhio, because of all of the work that is coming into Ohio, everybody, the buzzwords, Intel, the expansion of Amazon, we have solar projects. I think there are electric cars coming in. There's some huge bridge projects. A lot of folks need skilled workers quickly. An apprenticeship is able to train a person up quicker than, say, the traditional university route. So again, benefits are recruitment and development of a highly skilled and diverse workforce. We do establish pipelines of skilled workers. It increases employee productivity, which adds to the bottom line. The company is more profitable. It increases retention of workers during and following the apprenticeship. There was a statistic that more people, once they sign a contract, are more willing to stay with an employer than those that don't. It does create a flexible training options that ensure workers develop the right skills. So basically what that is saying is that we can, yes, there will be, this will be available. If something changes within a type of training, maybe a new type of program comes out or a new license for computer software, an apprenticeship program has the ability to be flexible with the training. It minimizes the liability cost because you are training the workers the way that you want to. And on an average, 20% return on investment. That's a nationwide average. So those are benefits to the employer. There are also benefits to the apprentices. So an apprentice can earn while they learn. Instead of going to school where they're racking up debt, they can actually earn a paycheck while they are going through the process. On-the-job training, like I said, starts out at a wage and they progressively increase as it goes along. There's work-based learning. They gain that on-the-job learning to prepare themselves for a successful career. So when they go to the next job, they already know what they're doing because they've spent time in that career. The classroom training, it's at no cost. Again, debt-free. There's a mentorship. You have somebody that you can ask questions about what you're doing, who is doing the job. And then the credentials. Apprenticeships earn a portable, nationally recognized credential within their industry. So just some fun facts about apprenticeship programs. Programs can vary from 1 to 6 years. 94% of apprentices stay with their employer after completing their program. And the average salary of people who complete apprenticeships is about $70,000 a year as an entry level once they've completed their programs. So Apprentice Ohio, we are growing. There is a lot of kind of stereotypes about apprenticeships. You usually think of, when you think of an apprenticeship, you think about building trades, you think about construction, you think about electricians, plumbers, masons, boiler makers, iron workers, you know, the kind of the blue collar skilled trades. But we're expanding. This year alone, I've only been in this gig for about 7 months, but we've expanded into broadband and 5G. We've had contact with supply chain automation, cybersecurity, and IT. Our IT, even Department of Administrative Services, DAS, they have an IT apprenticeship program within the state. So that's pretty cool. Teachers have reached out to us about student teaching. What was once an unpaid time frame within a teacher's career. We are trying to get that as an on-the-job training portion to entice and enhance recruitment for teachers. Healthcare, a lot of our LPNs or STNAs to an RN program are now being apprenticized. And again, like I said, state agencies, we're working right now with ODOT, mental health, DAS, and that might be it right now. OOD. So a lot of state agencies are reaching out, not for other things, but then internally. How can we promote within and use this this model to grow our staff. So just a little bit of bragging about us as in Apprentice Ohio. We have 332 active employers throughout the state. We have 604 registered programs, and we have 21,742 active apprentices statewide. With the amount of apprentices, we are third in the nation, and we are first in the Midwest with the amount of apprentices that we have. So we like to brag about that, and we only hope to continue to grow. So and I do have to say, we're only third behind California and Texas, two very large states. So excited about that. So not only does Apprentice Ohio do registered apprenticeship programs, we also do recognized pre-apprenticeship. And this is kind of where Lori and I have started working a little bit more closely. And this is kind of the entryway into a registered apprenticeship for some. So what is a pre-apprenticeship program? It's a set of strategies that are designed to prepare individuals to enter and succeed in a registered apprenticeship program. So what that means is that we try to teach basic technical and job-ready skills based on occupational sectors or career clusters to form a pipeline into our registered apprenticeship program. One of the caveats to a pre-apprenticeship program is that it must have a linkage with a registered apprenticeship sponsor. So we are going to try to get folks early, show them what the registered apprenticeship is, but then have a sponsor that they can transition into. And what's really neat about the pre-apprenticeship program is there is an eligibility for 12 points towards graduation. So we are seeing a lot of interest from students in high school trying to kind of navigate their next steps. As we know, not every kid is college bound. And this gives them an opportunity to kind of test the waters to see if apprenticeship is the avenue that they want to take. So there are a couple elements that we do look for in a pre-apprenticeship program. What we want it to do is simulate experience. So what that means is we try to get a student or an adult into the classroom or a work site or some job shadowing, some form of exposure to a work environment. Again, I stress that linkage to an established program. We ask that there be an agreement with a registered apprenticeship program so that if this is the path that they go, that there is the next step is waiting for them. What we do see and what we are seeing is the increased diversity that a pre-apprenticeship program offers. And you know, a lot of times you do what your family has done. So, you know, a blue collar worker may follow in the footsteps of dad, of grandpa, exposed to just what they know. And what we're seeing is that being able to open up pre-apprenticeships is we're opening the eyes of students. So people that may not have known what a plumber is or an electrician now have exposure to that kind of that world. So it definitely is increasing diversity. And then what is really cool about pre-apprenticeship is there are supportive services. So we can do some wraparound services to help participants complete the program. Maybe it's transportation, or it could be work tools, work type of equipment that is needed. So pre-apprenticeship is really cool. And it's so cool that we have started a kind of a pilot program. And this is where our connection with Lori started, actually. We have 6 hubs that are throughout the state. And it was an initiative to try to see if we could make these hubs go. And it basically is trying to promote pre-apprenticeship, but then also expanding our registered apprenticeship programs. So what we're doing is we're working with local workforce areas, And we're trying to focus on that word local. We're matching local businesses with local talent. And when you go to local areas, you can see something that in the southeast part of the state is different than what the needs in the northern part of the state might be. So we're really allowing the flexibility of the different areas to cater their programs to their local workforce. And again, we're just trying to make that connection between the pre-apprenticeship and the registered apprenticeship programs. And our staff, again, the AO staff is here for technical assistance, program development assistance, program registration, and the registration of the apprentices. So trying to do a collaborative exercise where we are involving not only education, but the economic development areas, supporting partners, our OMJ centers, and obviously business. So again, I did say that we had 6 of those, and they are kind of in the southern part of the state with the exception of Cleveland, but we do have a hub in Columbus, one over in the Butler, Warren, Claremont area in Area 12, down in the southern part of the state, Area 1. Area 20 is operating a hub. Obviously, one of my favorites is Area 14 with Lori. And like I said, Cleveland is up there by itself. But what we do try with the pre-apprenticeship, I did mention the word career clusters. There are 16 career clusters that we are trying to focus on. And those range from agricultural all the way to transportation systems. And right now, currently to date, we have 114 pre-apprenticeship programs in the state of Ohio. And it is only growing because a lot of schools are expressing a lot of interest, and they want to be up and going for next year's school year. So going to progress. Where can you find more about apprenticeship programs and anything about us? There, we do have a website. It's apprentice.ohio.gov, and we have sections for career seekers, parents and educators, veterans, and employers. This site is very good right now, but we hope to improve it. So it is a work in progress. So if you ever have a question or need to get into contact, we do have what is called a virtual assistant. His name is Antonio, but you can chat with Antonio. He is artificial intelligence. Type in a question and we have standardized answers that pop out. And if he does not help you, it will actually send an email to our team and we reach out and provide assistance. So hopefully this has been beneficial and made things make sense, but I will take any questions if there are any at this time.
We do. We have a few questions, Holly. So yes, I probably owe you dinner and dessert at this point. So one of the questions from the group is, why are hours still included in competency-based programs?
So that's a very, very good question. And it is one that is being challenged. But there is Department of Labor puts out what's called circulars and bulletins. And they do feel that 2,000 hours or 1 year of training, regardless of competency-based, is needed for an apprenticeship program for somebody to be competent in a skill. So they have defined that. It has been challenged, and they continue to come back and say, hold firm on that 2,000 hours.
Okay, so the next one is if somebody can prove competency, what can those they do to make those hours, like, go away?
so if as long as it's above the 2,000 hours, so we work with the employer to establish ways to show that they are competent in a skill. So it's not just, hey, I think you can do that. They have to demonstrate the ability to complete it. And again, it is that 2,000 hours is a minimum.
Right.
I know a lot of folks think and I'm not even arguing this because I can see both sides of the fence on this. Hey, and this came up with the medical field. Hey, I have a person that can do all of these things. They can, take blood pressure. They can do, they could administer a shot and all of that fun stuff. But then, do they have to continue to do this for 2,000 hours? And the answer is yes. So.
Yeah. And for us, like with our program, the auto tech program, it is competency based. So our journeymen are given that list of competencies. So are the apprentice that they need to complete. They actually mark it off, and then they sign an initial at the bottom as each of those competencies are reached. So that's kind of how they can show their competency quicker. Some people learn quicker, some people learn slower. So, we've explained to them that that's how we show the hours as well. So it's not cut and dry, if that makes sense.
Nothing of this is.
The next question is, if you have to match journeymen to apprentices, what about new jobs that don't have enough journeymen?
So there does have to be a mentor or some type of person that is helping guide them through this. So if it's a new program, there should be somebody more senior that can do that type of task that can help them through. Does that make sense?
Right. And typically what we say, it's not always 1-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can be 1-to-2. It just depends on the level of danger, right? I don't think you really want a nurse who's brand new to the job, not being a 1-to-1 ratio with the person who's the journeyman, right?
Correct.
So you want to think of, we think about that. We look at that. And you also, as a company, want to think about that as you're expanding as well. You don't want to have too many unqualified people in your field without having somebody that's showing them the ropes properly, right? Because it's your reputation on the line as an employer as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one up, can you talk more about building apprenticeships in non-traditional occupations?
Sure. So what is fun, and this is kind of how I'm even learning the ropes of apprenticeship, is we will take a set of standards and we will sit down and talk about what is needed to be proficient in an area. And a lot of those discussions, you can establish, hey, an apprenticeship program will work here. And sometimes after we have the discussion, hey, it won't. So as for the teachers, I mean, this has been probably a 6-month meetings, because sometimes there's policies that are standing in our way. There's an Ohio revised code policy says that a student teacher cannot get paid. So, and an apprenticeship program says, hey, you got to be paid for on-the-job training. So, sometimes just talking through that helps you navigate. It helps identify areas that you need to actually address. A lot of like the IT folks, that was a new venture. And people, they're like, we know that there's a need. We know that going the kind of the educational route takes too long. How can we figure this out? So when we're going into new territories, I think it's a lot of discussion. And what is cool is we have these standards that help us to guide that conversation along, if that makes sense.
Yep. What are the benefits of choosing a group model or a single employer model?
A lot of times and maybe Lori, you can speak to this too.
Yeah.
A single sponsor, you have control. It all falls on you. A group sponsor gives you the ability to kind of house it centrally and have a lot of employers kind of taking advantage of you. So for an employer or the employer that is using the group sponsor, they kind of get out of the work, I think.
They get out of that. They get out of the work, but it's also really hard sometimes to bring together a group of like employers, and have one person kind of be the lead. Speaking as a group sponsor, I spend a lot of time herding cats, and it's okay. a business owner might not necessarily be able to be a group sponsor for a whole bunch of businesses, and to try and get those businesses signed on, and then do everything that needs to be done for the apprentices. It can sometimes make it a little harder, but it also can sometimes make it a little easier. Like, with a group of manufacturers, they might be able to do this centrally a little bit easier than I could have like 1,000 programs. Okay, next up is the EEOC policy. But what about more active recruitment of people who have been systematically excluded from apprenticeships? I can kind of answer that for you, Holly, if you would like. So when we do our sponsor forms, we actually have to do almost a study overall about how diverse our population is in our region. And in that study, that goes into our standards. So we have to say, we have this much percentage of people of color. We have this much percentage of women over men. And in the field, then we have this much percentage of those same ratios. And we have to try to, our goal is to increase the percentage of underserved populations in those fields. So we recognize that as an issue. It is a goal that we have to have as a sponsor, and it is part of your standards, if that helps. Mm-hmm. Next up is, are there apprenticeships in workforce?
Not yet.
It's been something that's been asked especially a lot because we are having a really hard time across the state of Ohio having with case managers, both at children's services level, at the job and family services level. So it's been something that we've been asked about. Yes. From Adam, as a resource connector, I'm often asked by employers what funding options exist to assist with training outside of tech cred. Is there funding assistance or grants that are available for employers who want to start an apprenticeship program?
So there are grants, industry specific, out there. A lot of times we will promote them if we know of them. But as far as Apprentice Ohio, we do not have any funding. We don't do any of that type of funding. We do have an incentive grant right now, but that's for established sponsors. So a lot of times, it's kind of industry specific grants, nothing that comes from us.
Right. But I will say all of your case managers at Apprentice Ohio can help direct employers to assistance with funding, either through the Ohio Means Job Center, through the WIOA program, or like she said, they know of other grants that are available and out there that they can say, hey, the Manufacturers Association has this grant. Maybe you should reach out to them. So they can make that connection for you as well. So don't let that inhibit you from reaching out to Apprentice Ohio.
Exactly.
Next up, is there a way to search registered apprenticeships and recognized pre-apprenticeships across the state?
So there is and there isn't. No. On our website, there is you can go in and you can check for, for both of those. There's a spot for apprenticeship and for pre-apprenticeship. We are in the current process of ensuring that it's updated. As I mentioned, I think I took over maybe 7 months ago here, and this is one of the things that we're trying to work on so that we can show active and hiring types of apprenticeships. But right now you just get a list of all active. You'll get a list of 604 programs. You'll get the 300 and whatever the number was employers. So it's out there. It's just, it needs cleaned up, if I can say that. I'm being transparent with you.
Yeah, it's fine. I prefer transparency. I'd rather say if something's not right and we're working on it, then
we're working on it
at all, then try not say anything at all, right? So does the 2,000-hour requirement disadvantage immigrant and refugee populations who have to essentially train twice? I would say maybe the hour requirement might be an issue. However, I hope that people would realize that they're not really training twice. This is the on-the-job training, so they're actually being paid while they're completing these 2,000 hours. And as they're doing these 2,000 hours and meeting the competencies, if they're doing a competency rather than an hour-based or hybrid, they're still getting the wage continuation. So as they reach a certain level, they get additional wages. So I can see what you're trying to say. And it might be that, yes, it takes a little while longer for them to get back maybe up to what they were earning before they left the country that they were from. But they're getting paid. That's the benefit of an apprenticeship program, right? Is that they're actually getting paid from the get-go. It's not like going to college and you have to spend all your time studying and not earning money.
Lori, are they getting paid? So that was actually one of my questions. Are they getting paid what would be considered a good wage? Are they getting like a trainee wage or a stipend?
Nope, they're getting paid whatever anyone would be hiring, even somebody from their local, like if an employer has an apprenticeship program and they identified an employee that they feel would be really good for it, anyone who's coming into that apprenticeship program has to be meeting the same pay rate. It's not a lower pay rate. It's not, and we don't do minimum wage. It has to be above minimum wage.
Gotcha.
So what supports have you seen apprenticeship programs provide to the journeyman, providing the on-the-job training, peer support training, etc.?
What support have you seen apprenticeship programs provide to support
Journeyman?
Oh,
I don't think we've ever really thought about this.
no, I'm like, that's a great question. I don't know.
So I guess maybe it's almost like the journeymen are doing the supervision of the apprenticeships as part of their job within the employer. And so it would be nice if the employer recognized that journeyman has additional responsibilities, maybe.
Yeah.
So I do know, again, I'm drawing off of the teacher experience. So they're afraid that they are not going to have journeymen. So they are giving them an incentive. But again, that falls on the employer or the school district in this case, to give an incentive to be a peer support person or a journeyman.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions, but Robert Sheehan said that that you're doing a great job of getting the word out on apprenticeships at Warren County CC Adult Education. They have 14 state registered apprenticeship programs now. So that's wonderful.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
We're excited to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we've got some folks from Northeast Ohio who are group sponsors, and one of our participants had to drop off, but indicated that they just heard this week that someone who started an apprenticeship has made it to the journeyman level through their group sponsorship program. So that's super exciting. And we do associate it with the trades frequently, but I'm really excited about the potential of how do we take workforce positions or some other non-traditional occupations and make them apprenticeable, because it would be great to have folks be able to actually live while they're working and training.
Well, I can tell you from my own experience, when I graduated from college, I had, my master's was my 4-year degree was in psychology with a minor in social work. I could have dual degreed if I had the money, right? Because that last year of social work is all internship and they don't pay you for the internships. But if there had been an apprenticeship program, I would have been able to dual degree and have 2 4-year degrees. And it would have been wonderful, but there's no way I could continue to be a broke college student and do a year of free work for somebody. So
yeah, I think that's a great
it's a model that we could use.
And I think we have to recognize that there are lots of different pathways and programs. There's lots of different employment opportunities, but there's also lots of different people who have different situations to deal with, different
Right.
challenges, or have been more structurally excluded. And so I think, you know, for a long time, and I don't know if this data is still coming out, and the Ohio Workforce Coalition certainly talks a lot about what data is available, but for a long time we knew in Ohio, women and people of color did not complete apprenticeships at the same rate as other people. And so it's not just about, is everyone aware of it, and is, you know, are we getting people in the door? It's about all of the other things that need to happen. And I think there's so many different ways to be thinking about what does success look like. So yeah, there's a question about completion rate data, and I don't have, Holly, you may have that more recently. The report that was looking at women and people of color and the completion rates is several years old at this point. We could dig it up and share it, but I do think that it's just such an important piece of figuring out how are we more equitable and inclusive in our overall workforce ecosystem.
So I do want to add that when we do, so one of our kind of key aspects of what we do is compliance. Okay, so we help you write the standards. We go through and modify and do all of that fun stuff, but we also do compliance. And one of the key components is completion rates. It is our minority, it's our underserved populations. And, you know, and to be honest, I'm going to say every one that we do not see women or, you know, persons of color at the standard where we want them, but we are seeing them progressively get better. And I do kind of attribute it to a pre-apprenticeship. I mean, we're exposing a lot more people to these options, and they're working. I mean, I think Lori has a fantastic success story of your two. Didn't you have two ladies?
Yeah, we had two ladies who finished the pre-apprenticeship and have now gone to apprenticeship in the auto tech field, which is wonderful. Prior to this, when I did my standards, there were no female journeymen in the field at this dealership. So or any of the dealerships actually. So we are really excited that we have two that have finished. We actually have one pre-apprentice right now who is his family, he's from a family of immigrants. So this is, you know, we're really excited about that. We're breaking the ceiling. And I think a lot of people do think that apprenticeship, they automatically associate with unions and union jobs. And that's not the case. And if we want to expand and do well in apprenticeship, we need to look at all avenues of apprenticeable employers.
So Lori, I have one follow-up on that, and maybe it's a follow-up, Holly, to what you said. This notion of standards and not having women that hit certain standards and needing the pre-apprenticeships and all that. I get it, right? It's the pipeline before the pipeline. But what are we also doing to make sure that those standards are truly accurate and challenging employers to think about, okay, are you just creating this because you think that that's a proxy for all of these other characteristics you want, which is really just a different way to exclude people? So how do you blend, or how can we blend? And maybe this is more of a posing the question for further discussion. How do we also make sure that as we're thinking about continuing to build our pipeline of people, that we're you know, also building the pipeline of companies that are really thinking about what it means to invest and have fair standard, and not fair standards in the FSLA or ES that way, but that they're better jobs, that they're standards that are reasonable and tied to competencies and, you know, whole person looking.
Well, I mean, I will say part of going, like when I bring on an employer, I share my standards with them and I let them know immediately, you know, we need to look at bringing in people of color. We need to look at bringing in more women into the field. And if I have an employer that bristles at that, which I've never had, I will say all my employers are super excited and they're like, oh my gosh, we would love to have this. I would not bring them on as an employer of record for me. It's as simple as that. I would hope in this day and age that's where we're at with all of our employers and all of that we're signing on as an employer of record.
And I do have to, you know, I've started to get out and talk to a lot of different areas. And one of the ones that I just recently went to was the IBEW, and those are our electrical workers. And, we kind of posed this question and, we're just sitting around talking, and they're they're doing a sensitivity training they've included it in the curriculum to, how does a guy work with a woman in an environment that's traditionally construction? Like, be aware of your surroundings, know how you're talking, know that, and I thought that was pretty cool that they've started to include it into their curriculum of, hey guys, we've got to do better. And
Right.
so one is just recognizing, hey, we've got to do better. And then two, trying to figure out how to make that better.
Yep.
So, I think there are areas that are really embracing this, like, hey, we do have to get our arms around this. It's time. So, I applaud them, and I do have to just shout out to them, because well done.
It's a step, right? It's something. It's something.
Yep.
And
So I have a question. This is Eric Johnson.
Eric, we are wrapping up, but I did see your question about the split out, and I'm wondering if we could commit to you to get back with some data to the group when we send out.
Yeah, because I'm in a situation where I'm looking for people.
Yeah.
Right away, and I was at a meeting last week, and everyone's talking about how they can't find anybody. If there's 21,000 people in apprenticeship programs, I know in my industry and others, we're looking for people. So we need to connect on where these folks are.
Absolutely. And they're working. I mean, that's one of the cool things. Like Lori said, the apprentices are working. So what's the pipeline? Maybe we need to be talking more and connecting you with pre-apprentices. So we'll try and get some of that data and be able to share some more resources. But given the turnout and interest in this call, as well as the types of questions we got, I think, Holly, if you're open for it, or others on the team who've been working in this space, if we can do this was apprenticeship 101, maybe we do a 201 early next year, and I can certainly share some of the resources that are available nationally, and we can make sure that you all get this information. But I know folks are starting to fall off and have to jump off. I want to keep to our time. Holly, thank you very much, especially since you were a bit on the spot, I take it. You were great. Never would have known if you hadn't said anything. And reminder that all of the recordings included in the materials will be posted on the Coalition website. So you can access today's webinar as well as webinars from the last several years. And we would appreciate it if you could take just a moment to complete the survey that Carter just put in the chat. Let us know what you thought of this session, as well as what your ideas are for the next session. And thank you so much. I am happy. We'll stop the recording.